Welcome to Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton, where we equip pastors to take their churches from declining to thriving by pointing them to a new future and a new hope. Join us weekly for encouragement and practical advice in your pastoring journey.
Well, have you noticed there's a chill in the air?
It's Christmas Eve.
It's Christmas Eve.
We're all gathered here around the fireplace at the Spurgeon Library.
In the podcast studio.
We decided to come in here and work on Christmas Eve.
Because we care about you folks.
We do.
We love them.
This is Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton. There's Mark Clifton, who cares so much, sitting there.
Do.
And Mark Hallock is
Hey,
here,
guys.
flew in for Denver for this.
You bet.
And I'm Dan Hurst. Kyle Berryman sitting over here, handling the production. And it's Christmas Eve. And, you know, that probably it's a dilemma. And I don't mean to use it in a dramatic sense. But for most pastors, what do you do with Christmas Eve? It kind of gets repetitive. You know, a lot of us kind of do the same.
It comes every year.
Well, see, that's part of the repetition.
That's the truth.
But you know, it's like, do we do a candlelight service? Do we tell the story? Do we put a rocking chair up on the up on the stage and read the Bible story? What do we do? What do you do with Christmas Eve?
And also, you know, how much do you do? Do you decide to go all in and bring in animals and make a big production?
Yeah.
Do you go like unplugged and do it really sort of a cappella?
Right.
But before we do all of that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a history lesson
Here we
from
go.
Dr. Professor Mark Clifton on the history of Southern Baptists for all you young knuckleheads.
Visiting professor, by the way.
You don't. I am a visiting.
Midwestern.
I know.
I'm a visiting
He's
professor.
never taught here, but he is. He
Google
officially
me.
is.
I'm on their website.
He visits here all the time.
That's right.
Finally
H.B.
gave him a title.
Charles, H.B. Charles, and me are visiting
There you go.
professors. We're two of a kind, he and I. Anyway, seriously though, I'm gonna take you to school on this.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
And you're gonna be surprised. All you young bucks out there are gonna think I'm nuts. You already think I'm nuts. But when I was a youngin', when I was a kid, and when your dad was preaching initially, Harold, when he was in his 20s and 30s and 40s, and you were a little kid, we did not have Christmas Eve services. Southern Baptists, for the most part, up until the 1980s probably, 60s, 70s. Now, there may be some of you out there who did, but I'm telling you, for the most part, we did not have Christmas Eve services. Now, we had big New Year's Eve services. That was a big deal. We'd have a watch night. We had a watch night
Really?
service on New Year's Eve.
Watch night.
Watch night.
In
Always
case Jesus came back. or what's
just
the
to
deal?
watch in the new year together.
Okay.
Always bummed me out because I wanted to stay home and watch TV and see the ball land and all that. I shouldn't say it bummed me out, but it bummed me out because we had to go to church on New Year's Eve. Everybody else is doing all the so all the people would come to church. We'd come to church around 8 o'clock, 7:30 or 8 on New Year's Eve. Everybody bring a bunch of finger food. We'd play games. Sometimes we would play like the newlywed game. You know, my dad was the pastor, and we'd get these old couples together, and we'd ask questions. It was really funny. It was a fun time. Or we'd have a church talent show. That was always fun. And then we'd usually watch a movie, usually a Billy Graham movie, like The Young and the Restless or The Cross and the Switchblade or something like that. And then all these old people are about to go to sleep. We got to stay up till midnight. And then like about 11:45, my dad would start Bible study or a little devotion, and then about 5 minutes till midnight, Mark, everybody would get down on their knees in the pew, and we would pray in the new year. Nothing wrong with that, but we would always wanted to be praying as the new year came in.
That's cool.
And that was the watch night party.
Okay.
But we did not do Christmas Eve. So fast forward a few years, and I'm at Warnell Road, and we've got a Haitian congregation we've started in our building, and it's grown really well. The Haitian congregation did not do Christmas Eve, but they did a huge New Year's Eve deal. And here's the reason the Haitian congregation didn't do Christmas Eve, and here's the reason, for the most part, Southern Baptist, prior to the 1960s, whatever, we didn't do Christmas Eve, because that was something that the Catholics did. That was a very Catholic kind of thing, Christmas Eve Mass, midnight Christmas Eve Mass. And we did not do that. And frankly, in a lot of Southern Baptist churches, you know, Christmas was celebrated, but not that Christmas Eve, because it had that high church, liturgical, maybe Anglican kind of thing, Catholic kind of thing. And we were just sort of, you know, we didn't do that. And so, but sometime in the 80s, you know, we started having Christmas Eve services, and lo and behold, unchurched people came. You could reach a lot of folks who would never come to worship, but they do want to come to a Christmas Eve service.
Right.
And so I think the light went on to a lot of pastors and said, well, wait a minute, why aren't we doing Christmas Eve? This doesn't make any sense. If people want to come to a Christmas Eve service, let's offer that, and let's give them a chance to come, and let's give them a chance to hear the gospel. And so there became this change on that, and now there's a complete. And by the way, we didn't do Advent. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way in the 1960s and 70s Southern Baptists did Advent.
Right.
That was high church. That was not us. We didn't do Advent. I think if you go back and even look at Spurgeon, I mean, there's some conflict about his view on Christmas, but even you try to find Spurgeon. The Metropolitan Tabernacle didn't do Advent. They didn't do Christmas Eve services. That kind of thing. So it's been kind of relatively recent. None of it's bad. It's all fine, obviously. But I think it's just a little bit of history there that it's somewhat recent. So anyway, Hurst, go for it.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned two things. I was going to address it from the standpoint of the mission field and how we approached it on the mission field.
Well, you were in Honduras.
I was in Honduras, but the approach in the mission field, I think, is relative to Revitalize and Replant, because I mean we were in that mode in a sense. We were planting churches in Honduras, and this started back in the 50s. There was it was basically a Catholic nation, and so there was already that mentality of Christmas Eve. You have a service.
Right.
They were already thinking that way. Well, the Southern Baptists in Honduras, and my dad was the first. Mom and Dad were the first Southern Baptist missionaries there. Their approach simply was, look, let's take this tradition and let's use it for the glory of God. Let's use it for the gospel, instead of providing some sort of liturgical service as the Catholics were doing. Let's do something that shares the gospel. And that would be the time, because we also did the watch party. We did that also.
Okay.
But it wasn't evangelistic. And let's do something evangelistic on Christmas Eve. And this would be a time when you could invite your friends and family, because a lot of them are there, or you're visiting, or whatever the case may be. And so let's use it as a short time to present the gospel. So that was the approach. The approach was, this is a time you can invite your friends and family. They can come without the pressure of thinking, oh, I'm going to go to church and they're going to take an offering, and that typical mentality of what church is that lost people have. And so let's do this where it's far more inviting, embracing, and let's tell the story and let the Holy Spirit do His work. And so the approach on Christmas Eve was simply to have people come. The kids would have a little bit of a program. They would participate in it. There was usually a choir of some sort. And I'll tell you, one of the most moving times of my life was a Christmas Eve after a war. Honduras had been at war. There was, I can't remember the revolution, which one it was. I went through 5 revolutions. But it was and Honduras had been devastated. And everybody was still depressed. This was like 2 months after the revolution had stopped. And so we decided, should we have a Christmas Eve service? And the people said, oh, yes, we have to have a Christmas Eve service. So we did. And so the choir, the kids did the choir. That was how it started. Now, we had this whole program planned.
Yeah.
There was going to, we were going to tell the story. There were going to be some little dramatic, things. People were going to come up and do a little play, that sort of thing. It went south on us. Because what happened was we were out of power. We lost electricity, which is pretty normal in those days in Honduras. But everything was by candlelight, so that. Right. The children went up to the stage to sing. And what they were going to do was one child would step forward and say, for this year, what I want for Christmas is. And then they would use a word like, for this year, what I want for Christmas is joy. Mm-hmm. And so somebody would read a verse about joy, and then they would sing a song about joy, a Christmas song about joy. Then somebody would come up and say, for this year, for Christmas, what I want is love.
Right.
And so somebody would, a verse about love, and then they'd sing a song about love at Christmas. Toward the end of this whole procedure, this little girl stepped forward, and now you got to remember, this is a little wooden, we called it the tabernacle. It was a wooden church building, and there were probably, it was packed, so there were probably 150 people, in this auditorium. And it was full, and everything was by candlelight, no lights. It was raining like crazy. And this little girl stepped forward and she says, "What I want for Christmas this year," and then she just got wide-eyed. She had forgotten what she was supposed to say, and so it kind of stopped, and she said, for this year, what I want for Christmas is peace. And she said, and she was supposed to say the verse, and she said, she lost the verse, and she went, "That's all, just peace." And she turned around, and we sang, of course, Silent Night. We went into Silent Night at that point. Oh, my gosh. It was amazing. And my mom was playing the piano, and I don't know what happened. I think maybe something got in her eye, but she just couldn't see the music anymore, right? And it was a cappella.
Wow.
It was life-changing. But my point is that out of that moment, I'll bet we saw maybe a dozen people come to know the Lord.
Yeah.
Praise God.
So, excuse me.
That's incredible.
So Christmas Eve for us was all about evangelism.
Right.
So, sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. It's powerful.
Anyway, what about you?
No, that's great, man. It is so powerful. Spending your life in the mission field and being in a war-torn country is just something most of us have no understanding at all.
Yeah,
man. Thanks for sharing that.
What does Calvary do?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was thinking a couple thoughts that I would just offer, because I get it, man. Christmas Eve, it's like, man, it comes every year. Three things that we kind of have three rules with Christmas Eve at our church. Okay, one, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Now, again, you may be in a church that you want to go nuts, and that's fine. Do it. What we found is want to keep it simple. Part of why we want to keep it simple is I want to bless the families of our staff as much as anyone else. In a lot of churches, Christmas Eve is insane. You've got multiple services. So we've tried to do a simplify. So like we do instead of 3 services, we do 1 service. This is in Colorado, keep in mind, outdoors.
Really?
Outdoors. So we're like, bundle up, whatever it takes, but we're going to be all together as a church. We're going to make it a real simple service, singing a lot of songs, share the gospel. But keeping it simple actually blesses our people, and it blesses the families of our staff that oftentimes can't enjoy Christmas Eve. They've got family in town, and so I've just said keep it simple. Number 2, don't feel like you have to be original. You know what I mean? I mean, like some get
that is so true.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. People don't want original.
No, that's right.
They come because they want the Christmas Eve story.
That's right.
Tradition, yeah.
Yeah, just keep the same old story, man. Preach the good news of Christmas.
That's right.
And you don't need to kill yourself over it. Keep it simple, authentic, be passionate about it. Don't go too long.
Yeah, can I just say, too, when it's Easter and Christmas, it isn't the Super Bowl.
No, yeah.
You don't have to better yourself every year from what we did last year.
Amen. That's right.
You just preach the story of Easter.
Yeah, that's right.
The fact that a man came, died, and rose from the dead is good enough. You don't need to add to that or make it better.
Right.
And the fact that God was born of a virgin is a pretty good story.
It's a pretty good story.
Let it stand on its own.
That's right.
It's okay.
And it should take pressure off.
It should.
For years I put so much pressure on myself for Easter and Christmas Eve, and now I'm just like, man, I enjoy it. And that's the third thing. So number 1, keep it simple. 2, don't be original. And number 3, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, man. Have fun with it. And what I would say is, if it's not enjoyable, something's wrong. Like it's either too complex, you're trying to carry too much of the load, you're trying to be too creative, whatever it might be. You need to enjoy it. Your family needs to enjoy it. If you've got kids, you want them to enjoy it.
Yeah.
What you don't want is for them to go, yeah, Christmas Eve was awful.
Yeah.
Dad was stressed out, and the church, like, it's not worth it, man. Like, you've got to make those sweet times, have fun with it, enjoy it. So those would be the 3 thoughts that I would offer.
Keeping it simple is important because you've got, in a lot of churches, you'll have a sound people.
Yes,
you'll have your
right.
worship singers and band people. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
Don't make them work. Make it as simple for them
Oh,
as
yeah.
can be, as turnkey as possible as you can make it.
Dude, here's what we know. There's 3 things people want in Christmas Eve service. They want to sing some songs.
That's right.
That they know.
That's right. That they know.
Don't get don't
Yeah.
get weird, man.
Right.
Just sing the songs they know. Number 2, they want to light a candle.
They do.
They want to light a stinking
right.
candle. That's the highlight of that
That's
service.
right.
Let's just be honest.
That's right.
And they want to just hear the good news of Christmas.
That's it.
They don't want to hear a 50-minute exposition.
No.
Listen, and I love that, but they want to just hear a straight up, give me the gospel, the good news, and then they want to get home because they got food to eat.
That's right.
And they might have presents to open up. So
Right.
that would be my counsel.
I think you're absolutely
And
right.
it's not entertaining. It's not supposed to be entertaining.
No, you're not doing
No.
a pageant.
No.
Yeah.
You're not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to just stop that. Lost people need to be. They need to know the church isn't weird.
So follow
And
up.
one of the things that they don't like
That's right.
is the fake entertainment.
Totally, man.
So follow up.
Yeah, so you do, but here's the
we gotta-
thing.
how do you follow up with
Once
them?
you have your
Yep.
Christmas Eve service,
Right.
you better have a follow-up plan
Exactly,
for that. If you just
exactly.
leave those people that came there and,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then you've ignored them, then what was the point?
Well, here's what I say. I say, it's glad to see all of you here, but why aren't you here every week? If you love Jesus as much as you say you do,
Oh, that's it. That,
then just
that
coming
works.
on Christmas
And revival
Eve.
Yeah.
breaks out right
I
there.
mean, so y'all better be here next Sunday, or this is pointless. You're
And
just
then you go
wasting-
to the copier and make your resume.
You know what's sad, though?
Although
Look-
I will say,
Clift- yeah.
in my flesh, I have wanted to
Oh,
say
yeah,
that.
yeah, totally you
If
do.
Jesus means that much to you that you're all packed in here tonight, then why aren't you here on Sunday every week? Obviously, he doesn't in some ways. Obviously, you're looking for an emotional sentimentality moment. We're going to go see the lights. We're going to go see Santa, and then we're going to go to our Christmas Eve service. And I got to tell you, I have to battle that.
Yep,
Because
yep,
sometimes I
yep.
feel like I don't want to play into this sentimentality. I don't want you to think you can check this off your list.
I know.
And we're good parents because we took our kids to a Christmas Eve service, even though we don't take them to church. Even though
Yep.
I'm gonna. If I didn't say that in this podcast, my head would explode.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
with that said,
Right.
if lost people, unchurched people, marginally spiritually engaged people will come on Christmas Eve, then it's incumbent on me to share the gospel on Christmas Eve with them.
Yeah.
But to find some way, in a kind and compassionate way, to let them know that Jesus is more than just one special event here and there.
Yes,
He's a
that's right.
daily life thing. But how to follow up. I think you should always, and a great thing about a normative-sized church like ours, under 100 people, your Christmas Eve service can be incredibly informal, incredibly casual, incredibly simple.
Yes.
If you just got one guy or one gal up there playing guitar,
Yep.
leading Christmas songs, that's all you need.
Yeah.
You got a pastor up there just reading Luke 2 and telling the wonderful story of the
That's right.
incarnation
That's right.
and what the birth of Jesus means. That's all you need. And then you light the candles, like you said,
That's right.
and you sing Silent Night.
That's right.
But when they leave, give them something. There's all kinds of great resources, little books that talk about the gospel of Christmas, the meaning of Christmas. They're $1 or $2 a piece. You can get them some great resources. Always say, we have a gift for you as you leave, and give them that. And inside that, have a card that says, we would like to pray for you and your
good.
family.
That's really good.
And so here's a website you can go on and leave your prayer request, or if you want to, you can fill this out. And here's some information about our church and how we'd like to follow up with you, and give them that as they leave. So maybe as they leave and the Christmas Eve service meant something to them, they can go back and read that book. You've got the card. At least you made some contact. Don't let them just walk out the door at that point
Yeah, I love
without
it.
giving them something
really
along
good.
those lines.
And the follow-up beyond that is that you have to give them a reason to come back.
Well, that's a good word.
And that's why I think that is the perfect place, especially for lost people that are there, to give them a reason to come back. We're going to start a 2-week series or a 3-week series
great.
on a new start.
Yeah, that's a
How
great
do you
idea.
start over? You've got a new start with the new year, and you've got to put some of the past behind you. How do you take steps to start the new year the right way? And so talk about, let's come back, join us, and make it short. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is.
And maybe you put that information in the little book you give them
Yeah.
too, so they know we're going to start this thing. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, it's good. I got one more last thing I want to say. So when you're there Christmas Eve, Pastor, and you know this, there are going to be certain folks that come, they only come on that Christmas
Yeah,
Eve
that's
service.
right.
You got a sweet, faithful woman in your church, and her husband only comes
That's
on
right.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it happens. Or
You
you
know?
got an older couple and their grown children only come.
Only
They'll
come
come
on
with
Christmas
grandma and
Eve.
grandpa on Christmas
Yep,
Eve.
Yep. And it's like Clifton said, in your flesh, you want to bring the hammer. You know what I
You
mean?
do.
You want to just call them to repentance
You
right
do.
there. But here's what we got to remember: unregenerated people act like unregenerated
Okay,
people.
thank you.
We should. I'm trying to encourage you.
I know.
But we shouldn't expect. So we got to remember that.
Yeah.
And so here's my challenge: instead of looking at them and getting angry, which is in our flesh, you need to give them a hug.
There you go.
You need to hug them. You need to tell them again. I mean, listen. I'm preaching to myself, man. There's some folks for 15 years. Every year I see them.
Yeah.
And they act like they love the service. They bring people. They're the biggest evangelists.
Yeah.
One service a year.
Yeah.
And what I just know is, you know what? It's not going to do any good if I try to bring the hammer on these folks. I need to love them. I want to speak the truth, of
Right,
course. You know,
right.
preaching the gospel. But don't burn a bridge with lost people either.
Yeah, that's
so
the point.
good.
That are actually showing up to your church. Don't forget that. That's a big step. Keep praying. Keep
It's a huge
loving.
step for them.
That's right. And keep building relationship with them because
Yeah, sometimes Christmas is the only time that you'll have connection with them.
That's right.
And it may take a few years,
Yep.
to build up a relationship beyond a connection.
Awesome.
I hope this has been helpful for you, and we hope that your Christmas Eve is very, very special.
Okay, hang on a minute.
Merry
You got,
Christmas to you guys.
Anybody got a lighter? We're going to light candles.
Oh,
here.
are we?
Here we go.
Wait a minute. We're in Spurgeon.
well,
We're not allowed to light
no,
candles
no,
in
no,
here.
no.
Come on.
Shut out the lights.
Oh, there goes the
And-
fire
and-
alarm.
okay.
Way to go.
Thanks for joining us today on Revitalize and Replant. This podcast is brought to you by the North American Mission Board, where we help dying or struggling churches regain health for the glory of God and the good of their communities. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. To learn more about becoming a replanting pastor or to explore resources about revitalization for your own church, visit churchreplanters.com.